This is a true story. A woman was standing at the door of her house, taking a stroll, when she was suddenly hit by a strong gust of wind. Then, she heard a strange sound coming from behind her. Turning around to check, she realized it had started raining. But it wasn't ordinary rain. Large chunks of meat were falling to the ground. Seeing this, the woman began calling out loudly to her husband. A few minutes later, the two of them witnessed together one of the greatest unresolved mysteries in United States history. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the event known as the rain of meat from the sky. On the morning of Sunday, March 3, 1876, in Bath County, Kentucky, a strange rainstorm occurred that lasted several minutes. The fields were covered with chunks of meat. These pieces measured between 5 and 10 centimeters and covered an area the size of a football field. Local residents rushed to see the phenomenon, with some even tasting the meat. They said it tasted somewhat like beef, while others said it resembled lamb. A few days later, this story was reported in newspapers across the country. First, they couldn't have fallen from an airplane, as airplanes weren't invented until 1903. In the days that followed, Bath County residents began investigating the phenomenon, leading to various curious theories. Some believed the meat came from cyclones. Others suggested it was an animal made entirely of flesh that disintegrated in the atmosphere. This idea seemed absurd, almost like a legend. Scientists collected samples of the meat for analysis. A few hours later, the results revealed it was lung tissue. This explanation frightened many people, but it wasn't widely accepted. Another theory proposed that birds had been eating something in the sky and, startled, dropped the chunks of meat. This is the most widely accepted explanation, but it still doesn't answer all the questions. Why did the meat rain last so long, and why did it cover such a large area? The Cloudy couple, who witnessed the phenomenon, stated that they looked at the sky during the meat rain but didn't see any flying animals. So what really happened that day in 1876 in Kentucky? What caused this mysterious rain of meat that no one has been able to explain to this day? In another similar yet darker event, a girl found what appeared to be a human foot on a riverbank. Terrified, she called the police. After an investigation, it was discovered that it wasn't a human foot but a pumpkin head filled with meat and placed in a container. The case seemed to be a tasteless prank, but it was just the tip of the iceberg of a series of macabre events. In the summer of 2008, a woman named Sandra, a resident of British Columbia, Canada, encountered a terrified woman running along the riverbank while collecting stones. After asking what had happened, Sandra decided to call the police. That's when something strange was uncovered. Since 2007, along a specific region of the river, human feet have periodically been found on the shores. To date, 25 severed human feet have been discovered. The first case occurred when a 12-year-old girl found a foot and was horrified. Shortly afterward, a second foot appeared. Both were right feet and were wearing nearly identical styles of shoes. Despite months of investigation, the police couldn't find any relevant clues. In the following years, new cases kept emerging without explanation. The last foot was found on July 23, 2013. Some feet were identified through DNA testing, such as one found in 2008 that belonged to a young man who had disappeared a year earlier. However, other cases yielded no conclusive results. To this day, the mystery remains. Many believe a serial killer is involved, regularly disposing of victims' remains. However, this is just a theory without concrete evidence. Scientists have suggested the feet belonged to drowning victims. But one question persists: why were only feet found and never entire bodies? This case is chilling, but now let's move on to a completely different incident involving a controversial event with massive witness testimony. At a school in Africa, about 60 children reported seeing aliens landing on the schoolyard. Despite numerous accounts, authorities denied anything had occurred. The event took place in Zimbabwe, at Ariel School, on September 14, 1994, around 8:50 p.m. The entire region heard an explosion that caused tremors in the ground. The noise continued for about 20 minutes, leading some to believe it was an attack. However, no one could identify the source of the sound. 2 days later, on September 16, at 10 a.m., while the students were on a break, they heard a sound similar to the one from 2 days earlier, described as an electric buzzing. Some students noticed an unidentified object landing on the schoolyard. When the object stopped, the sound ceased. After a while, the students saw figures emerging from the object. They were about 1.5 meters tall, dressed in black clothing, and had strange features, such as elongated heads, large black eyes, and small faces. Many students ran to find their teachers, but some stayed behind. Those who remained reported unusual experiences. Some said the beings projected images into their minds, while others claimed they felt paralyzed and unable to move after making eye contact with them. Fortunately, when the class bell rang, the beings returned to the object and left. More than 60 children reported the same event, with detailed and consistent descriptions. In the following months, psychologists interviewed the children and confirmed their stories matched. Among those studying the case was Dr. John Mack, a renowned Harvard psychologist and Pulitzer Prize winner. Fascinated by the case, he discussed the phenomenon on various television programs. In 2004, after a lecture in England, Mack was hit by a car and died. Curiously, on the same day, 3 other men with the same name and surname also died. This case is considered one of the most famous supernatural events in Africa. To this day, it remains unexplained despite numerous efforts to understand what really happened.